All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders who are millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations, citizens here, Akim and Aqua, may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Akwai. I'm back in here with another quick lesson. And Lord's will as always, hopefully Yahweh Ratazah, Yahweh willing, that this lesson may be edifying. And for today's lesson is just going to be a quick couple precepts I had. And it's going to be in regards to giving counsel. And, I was just having a conversation with a coworker of mine at work. And then he queried me about, something that I thought was very interesting. And, because somebody was going through a particular situation and, he the essentially the person wanted to do and they were following, essentially they're following bad advice from somebody who may not be what's the word I'm looking for, ill-advised, right? And I kind of just wanted to go into a little bit about advice sometimes, because I think that's the beautiful thing about actually being part, of a camp, being part of a ministry, because that is so, you're actually surrounded by, a network of different brothers who have different particular skills and different particular avenues and so on and so forth. When you read chapters like First Corinthians chapter 12, each brother kind of like has their different diversity of gifts, right? And it might be whether it's in healing or languages, or they might be good in particular skills, so on and so forth. Whether it's like herbs, dealing with women, so on and so forth, right? And that's something I kind of just wanted to cover. And I guess I just wanted to touch on a little couple scriptures on giving, advice, because sometimes all advice is not beneficial for you, right? So in regards to, let me start off with this one precept here, actually. Just bear with me 1 second. Just forgive the background noise if there's a lot of background noise. Let's get Proverbs. Okay, this is Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17, and it says, "Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend," right? And that's the importance of actually being part, of a ministry with different brothers. And, different brothers have their wide array of different talents. Maybe it's one, maybe it's five, maybe it's 10 different talents certain brothers are good in. And being around, each other keeps us sharp, keeps the fire going, keeps us productive and occupied, and so on and so forth. It keeps us accountable. Honestly, really and truly, we do have our own crosses to bear, but this is the perk and a good benefit of actually having brethren around you, right? And because I noticed something that's in the world, for example, a lot of men don't have these particular things. They don't have the ability to actually, essentially confide in other men, especially that men that actually fear the Most High, right? Fear Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? So it's so important to actually not only have brothers who actually have a healthy fear of the Lord, but also have, men who are particular skilled in different particular gifts, right? And that's really the crux that I really wanted to hit the nail on in this particular lesson, right? Because this is something that is very, very non-existent, especially around Israelite men in the world. They don't have this benefit. They don't have this privilege, right? Where they be able to actually counsel with one another, and for it not to be, quote unquote, awkward or embarrassing, so on and so forth, right? So this is what I wanted to touch on, right? I'll read a little of Sirach. Okay, just as a matter of fact, let me get it in the GNT. Just bear with me on this. Then I'm going to get a quick account. It's taking slow. It's quite slow. And just forgive me on this. It's internet connection's a little slow. Let's see. It's working fine a minute ago, and now it's a little slow now. Wow, that's funny. You know what? I'll just get it in the KJV. Um, I wanted to get it in the GNT because it reads a little bit more smoothly. Let me just see. Oh dear. Okay, I'll just read it in the KJV. It says, Sirach 37. Oh, Salakia. Hold on. Just bear with me, brothers. You know, my apologies. Let's see if I can get this open for you. Okay, all praises. Okay, Sirach 37 verse 7, and it says, anyone can give advice, but some people do so only in their own interest. Be careful when somebody offers you advice. First find out what his interest in the matter is, because you can be sure that he is thinking primarily of himself. Why should he come out on top instead of you? Right? And that's true. Not everybody, essentially who gives, might give you advice. It might not be, they might have some kind of ulterior motive, right? They may not be actual, completely genuine. They don't actually, essentially, and that's another thing too. Some people don't always give genuine advice to actually help the person. It's most of the time you can have a person that tries to give you advice, and it's mostly to exalt to themselves as somebody who's kind of like well known and so on and so forth, right? Verse 9, it says, he will assure you that things look good and then stand back and watch what happens to you. Right? So sometimes it's not always good to take all counsel, because not all counsel may be appropriate for you as an individual, right? Don't ask advice of anyone who doesn't trust you, and don't give advice to anyone who is jealous of you. And that is something that was kind of what really and truly inspired the lesson, because some people, for example, they might have, like I've noticed this with like a lot of, like, I'm not making this lesson in regards to women, but I've noticed, especially with women, especially if she has like a very good relationship, with a man, and she's surrounded by a bunch of Debbie Downers that try to bring her down. If she's going through something in that particular relationship and she brings it up, what is something that is common I've noticed is that they won't give her the good advice. They will kind of like give her advice to sabotage what she has, because a lot of them really and truly, they want what she has, but because misery likes company, they will give her bad advice. They will ill advise her on something to do to kind of sabotage her relationship, so she ends up being single. That's something I've noticed with a lot of women, right? Verse 11, it says, don't ask a woman for advice about her rival of hers. And right, and that's true. You don't want to ask, because they're not going to give you genuine advice. They're going to give you something that's very ill-advised, essentially. It says, a coward about war, true. A merchant about a bargain, a buyer about selling, a stingy person about gratitude, a cruel person about kindness, a lazy person about work, a casual worker with finishing a job, a lazy slave about difficult task. Pay no attention to any advice that they give, right? So what's also important about receiving advice is that the type of person who is actually giving it, because the person is has a particular strength, not a strength, excuse me, not a if they have a weakness in this particular area, they may not be the best person to actually confide in and ask in regards to these situations, right? Verse 12, and this is what I really wanted to get as well. Instead rely on someone who is religious and is known to keep the Lord's command, someone who is sympathetic to you, who will be sorry to see you fail. In the KJV, this is what it says it. Be continually, excuse me, with a godly man whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, whose mind is according to thy mind, right? And that's the important thing. The scriptures talk about a faithful friend is a strong defense. And this is a good example of that when you read the story of like David and Jonathan, knowing what he had to go through. He was always, he was like kind of like that hedge of protection to protect him from the tribulation that Saul was putting on him. Right? Continuing on, it says, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry, right? So they, essentially you confide in someone who understands, been through some of the things you've been through, has a healthy fear of the Lord, and is actually able to, also help bear your burden, whatever that might be and whatever it is you're going through, right? So that it's explaining the most appropriate person to actually be able to actually, essentially confide in. You don't want to just confide in anybody, a random Joe Schmo on the street, right? I just want to get, just bear with me. Hopefully this works. Okay. Okay, just bear with me on this. I just want to get a quick. Just want to get a quick account on bad advice. Second Samuel 17 verse 1. And it says, not long after that, Ahithophel said to Absalom, let me choose 12,000 men, and tonight I will set out after David. I will attack him while he is tired and discouraged, but he will be frightened, and all his men will run away. I will kill the king, and then bring back his men to you, like a bride returning to her husband. It says, you want to kill only one man, and the rest of the people will be safe. This seemed like good advice to Absalom and all the Israelite leaders. Absalom said, now call Hushai and let us hear what he has to say. When Hushai arrived, Absalom said to him, this is the advice that Ahithophel has given us. Shall we follow it? If not, you tell us what to do. Verse 7, Hushai answered, the advice Ahithophel gave you this time is no good. You know that your father and his men are hard fighters, and that they are as fierce as a mother bear robbed of her cubs. Your father is an experienced soldier and does not stay with his men at night, right? So you can see, you have one individual, Ahithophel, who's trying to give Absalom on counseling of what he should do in this particular situation. However, when you really look at the grand scheme of things, what Ahithophel is trying to have Absalom trying to do it, it'll be a lot more detrimental, just like Hushai is explaining, because A, David is an experienced warrior, and B, essentially you're trying to ultimately, Ahithophel is advising Absalom to essentially usurp authority over David and challenge David, right? He doesn't have the mind to actually honor his, he's not advising his Absalom essentially to adhere to the law, statutes, and commandments, and adhering to have honoring your father, right? But this is why it's important to be continually with a godly man, like I just in the scripture I read before, right? So I'll just read verse 9. It says, right now he is hiding in a cave or some other place. As soon as David attacks your men, whoever hears about it will say that your men have been defeated, right? So you actually hear and get you hear the conclusion of what would happen if Absalom had followed Ahithophel's advice, right? So long story short, the guy Ahithophel, he realized that his advice is not followed, and he ends up hanging himself, right? There's one more precept I want to get. Or 3. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, this is Matthew 18, verse 20, and it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And that's important because you can actually see that dynamic, because that advice that he was that Ahithophel was giving Absalom, the Lord wasn't with that, right? And that's why it's so important to actually, when you do things, you do it with counsel. You talk to elders about certain things, right? And having that godly men being present around you, right? But anyways, I didn't want to make this lesson too long. I kind of just wanted to touch on a couple things in regards to giving counsel and advice, and it was just something that arose from a short conversation from co-workers, right? So I just thought I would make this edifying, because not all advice is always good advice for you, pertaining to you as an individual, right? So anyways, Lord's will, Yahweh Ratazah, Yahweh willing, that this lesson was edifying. And I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kodash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. Till next time, I say Shalom.